A very good morning to everyone. So, in the last lecture, we have started with concurrency control. So, can you tell me what do you mean by concurrency control first of all? What do you mean by concurrency control? Yeah, anyone? What do you mean by concurrency control? What do you mean by concurrency control? Anyone who can give me the answer of this? What do you mean by concurrency control? Anyone who can give me the answer of this? What do you mean by concurrency control? Yeah, it's simultaneous operations without conflicting, or we can say execution of more than one transactions at the same time on a same data item without making any types of conflicts. Yes, very good, Parth, Shivanand and Janvi. Right, so we have seen some of the topics, so let's very quickly go through what is concurrency control and what are the topics that we have covered very quickly in concurrency control, right? So I hope my PPT is visible to everyone, right? So in concurrency control we are saying that we want to have more than one transactions to be executing parallelly without making any conflicts on the same data item, and for that we are giving two concepts, that is exclusive lock and shared lock. That means a transaction has to first request about the locks, that I want to write a particular data item or I want to read a particular data item, and based on that the locks are given to the transaction. If exclusive lock is taken by any of the transaction, then no other transaction can take any other locks. If shared lock is taken by some of the transaction, then it is possible that exclusive lock may be given a permission, but it's not guaranteed, right? So based on that we have a locks. So locks are requested first. Once locks are approved, all the transactions are getting executed, and then at last the locks are released, right? So we have a growing phase and shrinking phase, right? So all the transactions acquire locks in the growing phase, and all the transactions release the locks after the transaction has been completed in the shrinking phase, right? So this is what we can say. Then we have strict two-phase and rigorous two-phase locking. Strict two-phase means a transaction can release shared locks before a commit command has been executed, but it cannot release exclusive lock until and unless a commit command has been executed. Rigorous two-phase locking says that either a shared lock or an exclusive lock cannot be released until and unless the commit command has been executed, right? So this is what the problem is. If some transaction is waiting for some other transaction and that other transaction is waiting for the first one, then we can say that that condition is deadlock condition, right? That means both transactions are waiting for each other to release their resources. And some other idea is that if some of the transaction or one of the transaction is kept in waiting mode continuously without approving its request, right, then that condition is known as starvation. That means one transaction is in waiting mode and other transactions are completing their work, and this waiting transaction does not given permission to perform its task. So that is what the starvation condition means, right? We have intention shared and intention exclusive lock. It means whenever you are having a tree like structure to store the data, right, then if a parent has been locked by any of the transaction, ultimately or automatically all its child locks are also locked, right? That is intentionally we are locking the child lock. That is what intention locking means, right? And all this locking mechanism is managed by a lock manager, where it stores each and every details of transaction name, which data item it wants to use, what type of lock it wants, which are the locks that have been approved for the transactions, which are the transactions waiting for getting the approval of the locks, all the things are stored in this particular lock table, right? And the second one of no second type of managing the concurrency control is timestamp based protocol. We said that if someone is having a read time older than the write time, then write operation is not executed, right? Similarly, if write time is older than the read time, then read operation cannot be executed. So this is what timestamp based protocol is. We are giving some time to each and every transaction so that they can perform their task in that particular time slot. No other transaction can conflict in that particular time slot. That is what timestamp based protocol is, right? So we have covered till here in the last lecture. So far, is there any doubt in any of the topics of concurrency control? Is there any doubt, anyone? Please tell me if you have doubts right now. Any doubts, anyone, in concurrency control? Anyone, any doubts in concurrency control? Right, so now we are moving on to the next and the last topic of our this chapter. That is, I am asking you, is there any doubt, anyone? Alright, so now let's move on to the last topic of this particular chapter, that is deadlock. We already studied deadlock. That what is deadlock? One transaction is waiting for the other transaction and the other transaction is waiting for the first transaction. So this is what our deadlock means, right? So let's see, a deadlock is a situation in which one transaction is waiting for some other transaction to release their resource. Okay, we can say that one transaction is waiting for some other transaction to release their resource. So we are where one transaction is waiting, but it does not mean that it is a deadlock. It can be something else also. But whenever you are having two transactions, let us say T1 and T2. So T1 is waiting for T2 and T2 is waiting for T1. When such type of condition arises, then and then we can say that it is a deadlock situation. Then and then we can say that it is a deadlock situation. That means two transactions, one transaction is waiting for second one and second one is waiting for the first one. Then and then we can say it is a deadlock situation, right? So remember this thing. It can be a very tricky question for your midsem examination. If I say that a situation in which one transaction is waiting for some other transaction is known as, so it will not be a deadlock situation. It will not be a deadlock situation. For a deadlock, it should be like one transaction is waiting for other and other is waiting for first one. There should be a cycle, otherwise a deadlock cannot be there. Clear with this? First of all, this definition, everyone, what I am saying, it should form a type of a cycle. Until and unless it forms a cycle, you cannot say it is a deadlock. Clear with this, guys, everyone? Clear with the definition? One transaction waits for some other transaction waits for the first one. Then and then a deadlock situation will arise. Very clear with this particular funda, everyone, first of all, or any doubts? Guys, yes or no? Okay, so moving on next. So let there be a set of transactions T1, T2, T3. See this, what I said earlier, it is just giving you the example of the same thing. There are three transactions T1, T2, T3. T1 is waiting for T2, T2 is waiting for T3 and T3 is waiting for T1. So ultimately it is creating one cycle, T1 to T2, T2 to T3 and T3 to T1. So whenever you have a cycle in a particular transaction, a cycle in a wait period, I would say, waiting stage, then we can say it is a deadlock situation, right? So each transaction is waiting for some other one, hence no transaction can work smoothly. Yes, one transaction is waiting for some other is waiting for some third one, and third one is waiting for the first one. So none of them can work smoothly because they are dependent on some other transaction. So this condition, we can say now it is a deadlock condition. So the only solution is we need to revert back or roll back all the transactions to its initial position, and then let them try to request for a resource after rolling back or starting it again. That is what the only solution of deadlock is. So how to detect a deadlock? So if you want to say that we have a deadlock condition, then there are 4 situations or 4 conditions that you must fulfill at any cost. That you must fulfill at any cost. So the first one is mutual exclusion. So what does mutual exclusion means? Mutual exclusion means one process will keep waiting for some other transaction to release their resource. It will wait. It will not do anything. It will just wait. So whenever you have such type of question, one transaction keeps waiting for some other transaction to release the resource, that condition is known as mutual exclusion, not the deadlock. That condition is known as mutual exclusion, not the condition, right? So one process works at one time, and the other process, if they want the same resource, then they keep waiting for the first one to release their resource. That is what mutual exclusion means. Second one is hold and wait. Hold and wait means one transaction will have the one resource, and will wait for some other transaction because it wants the resource of that other transaction also. Let us say, for a simple example, there are 2 transactions, T1, T2, and there are 3 different resources, A, B and C. So T1 has the resource A, and it is waiting for the resource B that is being held by transaction T2. So T1 holds A, T2 holds B, but T1 also wants B, but T1 will not get that B because T2 is already working on B. So this is what hold and wait is. You hold some resource as well as you want some other resource also that is being held by some other transaction. That is what hold and wait means. Clear with this, guys? What is hold and wait? Hold and wait means one transaction is already having a resource, right? And it is also willing to have the resource that some other transaction already has. That is what hold and wait means, right? Then comes non-preemption. Non-preemption means no transaction will forcefully ask any other transaction to release the resource. They will wait until and unless the resources are released by the given transaction. That is what non-preemption means. Process can release resources only when their task is completed. No force to complete or acquire resource. That means you cannot force any transaction to release the resource in between of their task. That is what non-preemption means. And the last one is circular wait. That means complete complete scenario of the waiting stage should form a circle or a cycle, rather I would say. It should form some cycle. One process is waiting for other is waiting for another is waiting for the first one. So somehow it is creating a cycle, and that cycle is known as a deadlock. So if you have all 4 conditions, all 4 scenarios at a time, then we can say it is a deadlock. Clear with this, guys? Just go through this slide again and tell me if you have any doubts. because on the basis of this all the rest of the topics we have, that is why. So just go through this slide again, and still if you have any doubts, just tell me and clear it, because we are only going to focus on these 4 points in the upcoming topics. Any doubts, anyone, in any of these topics? Mutual exclusion means one process waits for the other one. Hold and wait means one process hold one resource and also want some other resource from that other transaction already has. Non-preemption means no other transaction will force that other transaction to release resources. And circular wait means it should form somehow a cycle. Clear with this, guys, or any doubts? Right, so now let's see the example of it. So how to detect a deadlock, or we can say how we can say there is a deadlock situation. So the most simpler way to detect a deadlock is graph or wait for graph. That means we are going to create some graph. That means we are going to see that if we create one graph of the transactions and their resources, and if that graph creates a cycle, right, then we can say that it is a deadlock situation. So wait for graph is one of the type of graph in which we are trying to put all our transactions in some particular scenario. So let's see what is wait for graph. So each transaction is represented by a node, right? It is each transaction will be denoted as some node. It will be in a circle. When a transaction Ti is waiting for a resource held by Tj, so one transaction is waiting for the resource held by some other transaction, then we draw one edge, an arrow from Ti to Tj. That means a transaction who is waiting, from there we will start the arrow and we'll put that arrow till for which we are waiting, the transaction for which we are waiting, right? So this is how wait for graph is created. So if the wait for graph has a cycle, then we can say it is a deadlock, and all the transactions in the cycle are said to be deadlock. So if this wait for graph creates a cycle, then we can say that the transactions also in that particular cycle are deadlocked. So let's see first example. Consider we are having 4 transactions A, B, C, D, right? Now let's say A is waiting for a resource held by B, A is waiting for the resource held by C, right? Then we have, so A is waiting for B and C, right? Similarly, C is waiting for B, right? B is waiting for D, B is waiting for D, right? So do we have any cycle here? Do we have any cycle here in this scenario? Do we have any cycle here in this scenario? Does any of the transactions construct or form a cycle here? Yes or no? A to B and C, C to B and B to D. So does the transactions form a cycle? Yes or no? Does the transactions form a cycle or not? Yes or no? Does these transactions form a cycle or not? Anyone? See, A is waiting for B and C, C is waiting for B and B is waiting for D. So what we can say, you can see A to B there is an arrow, then A to C there is an arrow, C to B there is an arrow, but there is no particular cycle. You can see A like this, but we don't have a particular cycle. So this particular scenario is not a deadlock. Why it is not a deadlock? A to B but B to C is not there, right? And C to A is not there. So somehow there is not a cycle. You can see here very clearly. See, I am just marking it with a green color. You can see there is a arrow from A to C, there is an arrow from C to B, but there is no arrow from B to A. So this is not forming a cycle here. Even there is a no cycle here also, right? So this is not a deadlock, even though the transactions are waiting for the other transactions, right? The transactions are waiting for some other transactions, but still it is not forming a cycle. So this is not a deadlock situation. This is not a deadlock situation. Let's take the second example. Again same four transactions, A to B and C, B to D, D to C and B to C to B. Now do we have any cycle? Now do we have any cycle? Do we have any cycle? Do we have any cycle? You can see there is a node from C to B, then B to D and D to C. So this particular nodes are generating some sort of cycles. So this is what we call it as deadlock, DL, deadlock, because this B to D, C to D to C and C to B are creating a cycle, and hence all these nodes are said to be deadlock. You can see there is a cycle from B to D, D to C and C to B. So it is a deadlock situation for B, C and D. It is a deadlock situation for B, C and D. So this is what we can say, that if your graph contains a cycle, then we can say that it is a deadlock situation. It is a deadlock situation. So clear with this, guys? Just go through this slide again and tell me if you have any doubts. So this is how we detect a deadlock actually. So just go through these slides again. Sorry. Yeah. Yes, anyone, any doubts in any of this particular part? Right, so these three transactions are creating a cycle, so we can say it is a deadlock. Here none of the transactions are creating any type of cycle, right? So we can say that it is not a deadlock situation, even though someone are waiting for some other transactions. If there was an arrow from B to A here, this arrow would be in inverted way, then we can say that this was a deadlock situation, right? So I hope it is clear with everyone now what is deadlock situation and what is deadlock. Any doubts, anyone? Anyone, any doubts? Right, so let's move on to the next topic then. So this is how we detect the deadlock, as we said. Right, now how to recover from deadlock? So what are the steps we can take if you want to recover from the deadlock? So that is again a new topic. We have seen deadlock detection. Now we are seeing deadlock recovery. So how to recover a particular deadlock? So the most simpler way to recover from a deadlock is a rollback. So you need to ask the transactions to roll back. Now let us say you are having three transactions who are creating a deadlock situation. Then which transaction you will say that you roll back? How to decide the transaction that will roll back? That is what the main task is. So how we will decide that which transaction must be rolled back? So the simplest way is we need to identify a victim. We need to identify a victim. Now what is victim? Victim means the transaction which incurs minimum loss. That means if we roll back any transaction and if that transaction is giving us the minimum amount of loss in terms of resources, in terms of execution time, in terms of many different parameters, right? So the transaction which incurs the minimum loss, that transaction will be rolled back and will be restarted again, and that transaction is known as victim. So this is what the main concept of deadlock recovery. What is it? We need to identify a transaction, right, that will incur or that will have the minimum loss, right, and we need to roll back that particular transaction, and that transaction is known as victim. So now how to decide a victim? So decision to roll back a transaction is made on following criteria. As I said, there are different parameters to decide which transaction will be rolled back, right? So let's see what are the different parameters are. The first one is the transaction which have minimum locks. So the transaction who has requested the minimum amount of locks, right, that will be rolled back. Either this is the first option, that the transaction which has the minimum amount of locks or minimum number of locks must be rolled back. This is the first way, right? Second way is the transaction which has executed less work, right? So let us say one transaction is having 10 operations, second one is having 8 operations, and the third one is having 14 operations. So we will say that transaction 2 is having the minimum amount of operations, or let us say transaction 1 is having 10 operations and it has executed 5 of them. Transaction 2 has 8 operations and it has executed 6 of them, and transaction 3 has 14 operations but has executed only 2 operations. So which one we should roll back? Which one we should roll back? The transaction which has executed less amount of work. So first transaction 10 operations, 5 executed. Second transaction 8 operations, 6 executed. And third transaction 14 operations, only 2 executed. So we will try to roll back the transaction which has executed the less number of work, that is the third transaction, because it has executed only 2 operations. So this is how you decide the particular victim And the third way is the transaction which is very far away from completion. Similar to your second point, the transaction which has executed the less number of operations, right? Or we can say the transaction which is very far away to commit its work. That is what the third parameter is. Again, let us say T1 having 8 operations and 6 are done. T2 is having 8 operations and 5 are done. Let us say T3 is having 14 operations and 13 are done. So which one is now farther? We have to find out that which one is still which transaction is having more number of operations to be executed. Which transactions are having more number of operations to be executed. So we can also try to provide that transaction a rollback command. So these are the three different parameters on which you can decide that which transaction will roll back in a case of deadlock. Either a transaction with a minimum locks, or which has executed less work, or which has more work to be executed, which is far away to execute a commit command. So these are the ways you can find out a victim and you can recover your deadlock, right? So this is what deadlock recovery means. So just go through it and tell me if you have any doubts. Just go through the slide again, and if you have any doubts, just tell me. Just go through it, and if you have still any doubts, just tell me. Yes, guys, anyone, any doubts in this? Anyone, any doubts in this? How to recover a deadlock? We recover a deadlock we recover a deadlock by finding out a victim transaction, and that victim transaction is identified on the three parameters, that is the transaction having the minimum locks, the transaction has executed the less amount of work, or the transaction is left with the more number of operations to be executed. So I hope it is clear, everyone. Shall I move on? Move on to the next topic. Okay, then let's move on to the next part. The next part is deadlock prevention. So now you have detected the deadlock, you have tried to recover the deadlock. Now it is a task that how you can prevent a condition of deadlock, how you can try to prevent a deadlock condition that it will not arise in any case. So that is what deadlock prevention is. We always say, right, that prevention is better than cure. So if we take a precautionary measures earlier, then we will not have any of the issues. So if we take some prevention methods or prevention measures earlier in the transactions, then we will not have a deadlock situation. So let's see how to prevent a deadlock. So deadlock can be prevented using two methods. The first one is wait die approach. Now what is wait and die approach? Let's see. If an older transaction is requesting a resource which is held by a younger transaction, then the older transaction waits. This is the first rule. Right? Let us say there are two transactions, T1 and T2. T1 is older and T2 is younger. That means T1 has started before T2 has started. Just assume that thing, right? So T1 is the older one and T2 is the younger one. Now T1 wants the resource that is held by the T2. So what it says, if older transaction is waiting for right, if T1 is waiting for T2, that is older transaction is waiting for T2, right, then it will wait, it will not do anything else. But if a younger transaction is requesting a resource which is held by a older one, then younger transaction is killed and rolled back. That means if older transaction wants a resource held by the younger one, it will be allowed to wait, it will not do anything. But if younger transaction requires a resource held by the older one, then it is automatically killed. That means it is rolled back, it will not be allowed to wait. So somehow you will not have a cycle, somehow you will not have a cycle. See, T1 is waiting for T2, but T2 is not allowed to wait for T1, it will be directly rolled back. So this is what wait die approach is, where older transaction is allowed to wait and younger transactions will be directly killed, or they will die, or they will roll back. So this is what wait die approach means. So this is what the chart is. See, old transactions, O means old and Y means younger. Old needs a resource held by Y, that means younger one, then old waits. Younger one needs a resource held by O, then Y dies. Right? Simpler, just remember this rule. In wait die, younger one will die, older one will wait. This is what the wait die approach means. So just go through this, and if you have any doubts, tell me. Go through this slide, and if you have any doubts, just tell me. Anyone, any doubts in this? Anyone, any doubts in wait die approach? Is there anyone, any doubt in wait die approach? Guys, I am waiting for your response. right? So wait die means if older one is waiting for younger one, it will wait. Younger one needs older one's resource, it will be killed and roll back. So the second option of this is, first one is wait die as we said, and the second one is wound wait. Now what is wound wait? Let's see, if an older transaction is requesting a resource which is held by a younger one, right, then the older transaction forces a younger transaction to kill itself and release the resource. So let's say again T1 is older and T2 is younger. The T1 needs the resource that has been held by T2. So what it will do, T1 will force T2 to kill itself somehow and release the resource. It will forcefully take all the resource that is required from T2. That is what wound means. It is going to forcefully, or it is going to intentionally and forcefully take the resource that it wants from the younger one. So older one forces the younger one to kill itself and release the resource. So this is first part of the wound wait, where older one needs the younger one's resource. But if younger one requires the older one's resource, then it will be allowed to wait. It will be allowed to wait. So younger one is requiring the resource of older one, that is T2 requires the resource of T1, then T2 will be asked to wait, right? And if T1 is requiring the T2's resources, then T1 will forcefully get the resource by killing T2 or rollbacking the T2. So this is what wound wait approach means. So this is the chart. O needs a resource held by Y. So Y is getting hurt, or Y is going to die, and it will release the resource. And if younger one is willing to have a resource of older one, then younger one will wait. Y will wait. So these are the two approaches of deadlock prevention. The first one is wait die, where older one needs the resource of younger one, then older one waits. If younger one requires a resource of older one, then younger one dies. And in wound wait, we can say that if older one requires a resource of younger one, then younger one is forced to kill itself and release the resource because it is required by the older one. And if younger one wants the resource held by older one, then younger one is asked to wait. So in all the conditions you can say that younger one will die in both the case, right? So this is what deadlock prevention wound wait approach is. Just go through it once. So these are the main two techniques that is used for deadlock prevention: wait die and wound wait. So just go through both the slides again and just compare how it works. Just compare how it works and tell me if you have any doubts. This is wait die and now wound wait. Just remember the below chart. That would help you to remember very clear easily. So clear with this, guys? Wound wait. Is there any doubt in wound wait or wait die? Anyone? Anyone? Any doubts in wound wait or wait die? Yes or no? Okay, so then let's move on to the last one. There is some other technique also to prevent a deadlock other than wait die and wound wait. Let's see, the third one is a timeout based approach. Now we already seen timestamp based approach in concurrency control. So similar to that, we have a timeout based approach. So what is it? Let's see. So transaction waits for a lock only for a specific amount of time. After that, a transaction is rolled back. So let's say T1 is requiring a resource held by T2. T2 is requiring a resource held by T3, and T3 is requiring a resource held by T1, right? But all the transactions will wait for some amount of time only, right? They will be in a waiting stage only for some amount of time. If in that time the resource is not released by the transaction, then automatically the transactions will get rollback. Automatically the transactions will get rollback. So let us say T1, T2 and T3. So T1 is waiting for T2, T2 is waiting for T3, and T3 is waiting for T1. So what will be done in this case? T1, T2 and T3 will wait for T2, T1, T3 and T1 for, let us say, 5 seconds. And in that 5 seconds, if the resource is not released by any of the transaction, then automatically all the transactions will be rolled back. So this is timeout. You are given some time limit. In that time limit, if the resource is being released, then use it. If it is not released, then just roll back. This is what timeout approach says. This is what timeout approach says, right? So deadlock will never occur in this scenario. If we are giving a timeout based approach, right, each transaction is given some amount of time for a waiting period. Then if in that waiting period, if the transaction is not getting the required resource, it will be rollback. So there is no chance of having a deadlock. So deadlock will never occur, right? So this is what a time based approach is, right? And so with this we end this particular chapter, that is transaction. I have already uploaded this particular PPT on your e-content, so I request everyone to just refer to this PPT once, and still if you have any doubts, do clear it in the Monday's lecture first, right? Now talking about the syllabus of your mid semester, right? So your mid semester syllabus will be having two theory chapters. One will be your relational algebra, right? Selection, projection, joins, rename, sum, aggregate, count, all these things. And you will be having practical 3 and practical 4. That means all the SQL functions and the join operations that we have studied so far till date, right? So this is what your syllabus of mid semester is. Am I clear with the syllabus, everyone? Am I clear with the syllabus? Your unit 2 officially of syllabus, right? And unit 6. Unit 2 is relational algebra and unit 6 is transaction, right? And practical 3, that is SQL functions, primary key and foreign keys, and practical 4, that is distinct, group by, having, and joins. So I have pasted the complete syllabus of your mid semester in your chats. You can just go through it. Unit number 2 and 6 from theory, relational algebra and transaction, and practical 3 we are having SQL functions. The PPT is already available in your e-content. Primary key and foreign key tables we have created, so you already know how to create those tables. And then we have a practical 4 that we studied in the last lab, distinct keyword, group by keyword, having keyword, subqueries and joins. So I hope it is clear with everyone what is the syllabus of your mid semester, or is there any doubt? I will drop an official message in your WhatsApp group also. Don't worry regarding that thing. Right? So with this, let's end our lecture here.